Perfect.
Sports Gamers Online is the #1 source for the sports gamer.
Welcome back, sports gamers. It's the Natural, back with some more Madden 22 exclusives here with Dustin Smith, aka the Equipment Guru, here to answer all of your Madden 22 equipment questions. Thanks for joining me.
Hey man, happy to be here. You know, I'm a man of people, lover of equipment, lover of this time of year.
It's been a while since we had a time to just sit down and talk about this.
Yeah. I mean, I love talking equipment, and it's hard to get me to stop talking about it. So I'm always down.
All right, let's get right into it. Have a ton of community questions for you. So let's get right into it. So one of the things that we talked about in the past was that, you know, the NFL is very stringent on what they approve or don't approve in the game. Are you still limited by, you know, that process?
I mean, they have loosened it up some, and I mean that goes for the players on the field too. On certain things, you know, like they're a little bit more lenient with their sock rules now, but still, you know, they still hand out fines and whatnot. So yes and no, I guess, is a short answer. Like, we still can't do certain things. Like, the NFL still wants the uniform to still look a certain way. We're not supposed to be able to break it in terms of the way, like, if a player is going to get fined for it, we're really not supposed to have that in the game. So that's essentially, you know, where we're sitting at. You have the small hamperings that they'll leave in, but they have gotten a little bit more lenient.
Okay, sounds good. It's a good process that they're kind of loosening up a little bit, so you can, you know, add more things to the game that the players want. Speaking about process, one big thing that people always notice are face scans. How's that process been changed or updated and improved in any way?
We have changed our rig that we go out scanning with. We've started doing, you know, some other types of scans, scanning more parts of the player, et cetera, et cetera. We now do a full Capture Lab type trailer that rolls out, gets everybody's, gets every single piece of them, comes back nice and clean. We have a good list of players this year that I think we showed in the equipment and roster notes and stuff that we put out recently. But that's not the end of it. We have some plans for some more this year. Last year, our list was diminished quite a bit. I'm happy to say that we've got more this year, even working around the impacts of COVID. So I'm happy to say things are good there. Things are getting better. Things are improving. We're getting more. And it's definitely a big focus going into even 23 as we continue to move on. Player authenticity, player likeness is a big move for us.
Yeah,
not
for
just
sure.
this year, but next year.
People notice that right away. Speaking of improving and leveraging more power, how have you leveraged the power of the next gen, or obviously now current gen consoles, PS5, Xbox Series X, to improve the quality and look of equipment and the players themselves?
Well, I know our create team spent a bunch of time working on updating textures and skin and sweat, and like literally just the general look of a player had to make that jump into next gen. So they spent a lot of time just working on faces, basic textures, all this and that, upping resolutions on things. We went to Swish for 21, so you can actually see. I mean, this is always a plus or a negative, but some people have probably noticed it, some people haven't. But like, when a player moves in any way, shape, or form, the jersey actually adjusts for it, the pants slightly. You'll see some wrinkles here and there as they run. If you've ever cared to go into it and instant replay and check it out, I know you have to go in there to see it, but it is, you know, it's like a natural moving jersey. It's been something we were able to leverage when we went over to Gen 5. It was a big thing our create team got all hyped up about. Some people, it just looks so natural that they don't see it happen and they just assumed it's been there. Some people actually caught it. You know, it's just a cool thing that we got to do for next gen, and I think a lot of people may or may not have seen, but I think when they actually do notice and catch it, they're like, wow, that's really neat.
Yeah, it's good to see that 2K does not have the monopoly on next gen sweat.
Yeah, no joke. They love the sweat. They love the sweat. In fairness, you know, I wouldn't say our team's all that different. So there's always some sort of a conversation, it seems, every year in some way respectable about sweat. I don't think we spend a ton of time on it, but it does always come up in some way, shape, or form about getting the sweat right, and the specularity needs to be good.
All right, so
you're too much and it can't be too little. Right.
So you heard it here first. EA's got some sweaty guys over there too. Big sweat fans. All right. So how do you pretty much determine what equipment goes in the game each year?
So I've got a list that I've been building for year over year and year over year. And essentially they say, here's the budget. What can we get in? What can we make work? I go and I prioritize that with, it sounds like, hey, let's, we don't have that, let's say, we don't have that much budget for this particular area this year. So do you want to do a bunch of small little things, or do you want to do like one or two big things? Like it's just kind of that way off of like, what's your best payoff here? Do we get a bunch of little low hanging fruit that may have been passed by in the last year or so, or just is new, but it's still low hanging fruit? Or do you really go and you want to focus on, I don't know, doing a whole bunch of big things, but you only get one or two of them. So you go and you pick through and you align that with what all you want to do. Everybody comes to an agreement. They say, I like what you picked. We move forward with it, and then we keep that backlog of everything we didn't get to, and that just keeps climbing up the list. Some things get deprioritized on a year, like maybe players stop wearing them. Maybe something else new is coming in and it's more popular and it jumps ahead of an item that we still hadn't got to, so there's all sorts of things that you kind of got to focus in around that. Like the arm tape jumped up after really not being used on players for a long time. All of a sudden, more and more players are wearing it. It's back. So that jumped up on our priority list, for example. So all those kinds of things basically determine, what we're going to get to, and it all works off whatever budget you're given each year.
Yeah, one thing I did notice that it seems like a lot of players in the league kind of have that the knee pad height. They wear them a little bit higher than they used to, or kind of above the knee. Will you have something
bicycle
in there?
Shorts, right?
Yeah. Is there something that you will be able to adjust knee pad height to get that look that players wear now?
I think that kind of goes back to your first question about what the NFL will or won't approve. It's really going to come down to whether they'll let us do it or not. I mean, their big thing is that according to their rules, they don't want you to be able to, they don't want the knee exposed, because the knee is supposed to be covered by the pant, which has the knee pad in it, which makes it safer for your knees, which, by all intents and purposes, it's safer than having it exposed, I guess, sure. But, players still tend to care more about comfortability. So you see a lot of players that, whether it rides up during the game or they just never have it covering in general. Like I know a lot of kickers and punters do that. If the NFL says yes, I mean, it's something I know we want to do, but it's really just, that's what it's going to come down to.
A lot of people were pissed off last year when there was some equipment that was included in the yard that wasn't in the other modes. Even now, will the shooter sleeves look better in the in other modes that they did in the yard? Because it seems like some of the equipment was included and even looked better in that mode than the other ones.
So all of that was brand new equipment for the most part that came into the yard because it was put onto a whole new body, right? So those are brand new and different arms. Now the point of with us moving forward, we are essentially trying to unify that character to make it one character so that they can all share the same parts. So it won't happen this year. We're not going to have the same shooter sleeves as the yard, but moving forward, that is something we're trying to do. That includes all the other types of cool things that the yard can have on their arms and other things. We want to be able to unify that, and as long as the NFL says yes to certain things that we have in the yard to the regular NFL player, then we're gonna try and capitalize on that.
Okay. So one thing people ask about a lot is customization. Will you have the ability to change color within all the equipment, or a potential suite for creating different visors or face masks or even tattoos?
This one's on my list. I mean, personally, it's a face mask creator, but I mean, you start somewhere and then you expand it to then maybe potentially include visors, maybe create your own tattoo. We just one of the guys we just added to the team was working on Forza, so he knows about creation suites and all that. So I mean, when I had shown him some of the things that I had on my list as we're moving forward, obviously he's in that space already, loves a lot of these ideas. It's really just going to come down to priority of what we want to focus on and what we're given of how far we can go. If we get a huge budget next year to just blow it all out, we'll get a bunch of really cool stuff and the unique things and this or that. And it's not just budget, because it also comes down to the amount of people you have too. You need a good team, good sized team, especially if you're going to do a whole bunch of stuff. And it adds up quick when you're in the space of like not just making an asset, but creating a new way for that asset to work, et cetera, like a whole new UI system. So you're involving like 3-4 teams now with UI and graphics and art, and then the DB side of adding it and creating it and assigning it. So there's a multitude of things that come with it, and I think it's not going to deter us from going after it. But based on the heavy lift or minimal lift, depending on whatever it is, it's going to determine how soon it gets in.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that exclusive look at equipment in Madden 22 and beyond. Stay tuned for the next episode where we cover towels and hand warmers, baggy sleeves, custom cleats, and an unannounced teaser for Madden 22 that has not been released yet. If you appreciate our content and all the work we do to bring you guys the latest news, tips, and gameplay from your favorite sports games, drop a like, subscribe, SGO today. If you want to take your game to the next level, then join SGO Insider.